Welcome, everybody. My name is Mina Jane, and I'm the director of the Ashland Public Library in Massachusetts. And I'm really happy to be here with Lorelei, who I don't even think I know her last name because she's just known as Lorelei,
Lorelei.
the founder and ins inspirational guru of Lorelei's Lit Lair. And we'll learn all about Lorelei in just a minute. But as I said, if you're coming in, feel free to let us know where you're coming from and use the chat to just chat with each other throughout our talk. I want to say a couple things. One, I'd like to thank the Friends of the Ashland Public Library for supporting all of our programming. They're really awesome. And also, Lorelei let us share this program with other libraries and other communities. So I welcome the patrons from those libraries because, when libraries work together, we just totally make magic, and it's wonderful. So Lorelei is, like I said, the founder of Lorelei Lit Lair. It's a blog, it's a book recommendation place. She's a passionate romance ambassador. Now, I always thought I was, but once I started following her, I was like, oh my gosh, she's totally, she knows what she's doing. So welcome, Lorelei. Thank you so much for being here with us tonight. And
Thank you so much for having me. This is an honor to be on your show, on your program. This is like a show, you know. I feel like I'm in the hot seat now, you know. I'm used to interviewing authors like you, so now I'm the one being interviewed. So, but this
now
is
you know how they feel. Never
yes.
to come at you. But yeah, we're just gonna really have a very casual conversation for people in the Zoom. Please put your questions in the Q&A and I will moderate them to Lorelei through our talk, and feel like, again, use the chat to chat with each other. We'll be paying attention to that as well, or at least I will. So Lorelei, tell us a little bit about yourself, just like your background a little bit, and then we'll get into how you created Lorelei's Lit Lair.
Okay, I will say, well, thank you again for having me, and hello to everyone out there. I started out reading romance later in life. I wasn't a romance reader like everyone, you know, like the traditional romance reader that they started when they were young and in their teens, or took from their mom's, you know, stash, and or grandma gave them, you know, books. No, my background was in paraprofessional for special education.
Oh,
So, and I started working with children with special needs or special education, varying exceptionalities, any of those. And so I worked in that for 14 years. I lived in New York. I originally lived in New York, and then I moved to Venezuela, and that's where I got married, had my kids, and then later in 2001, we came, and now my home is in Orlando, Florida.
mhm.
And so how I found it was once, you know, in 2007, when budget cuts started happening in the school system, since I was working in the school system, I figured because of budget cuts and seniority, anyway, it was better for me to stay at home and have the little one and volunteer than work so far away for the only school that was available. So I stayed home, I volunteered, I took care of my kids, because many people, when they, you know, when they're getting ready to go to college and they want to have a degree, yes, I wanted to be a kindergarten teacher. Yes, I wanted to be a guidance counselor, psychologist, social worker. I liked all of those, but most importantly, what I wanted to be was a mom.
Mm.
I wanted to be a mom, and I wanted to have 3 kids because I was an only child, and then of divorced parents, amicably divorced. So I had a good childhood,
Mhm.
but I wanted what was, you know, what I was seeing, you know, parents together, siblings, you know. But anyway, let me go because this is going to go back and forth.
Okay.
So anyway, the school system, I was volunteering, and then my daughter came to me and she said, oh, I want to buy this book. And I said, what book? And he says, oh, this book, because everybody's reading. And I only read nonfiction, everything instructional, anything to teach, because that's what I was working with. I love serving community, helping students. That's my thing. And so when she said, I want to read, I said, okay, but what is this about? She says, it's about vampires and werewolves. And I go, what? I said, okay. Actually, it wasn't the first book. It was the fourth book,
Oh.
Dawn. And I said, no, no, you can't read the last book in a series. You have to read the first book. I went to my public library and I found the book.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, okay, let me just see. And I opened page 1. 7 days later, I read all 4 poems. Okay, if you would have given me a Harlequin, like the skinny books, that was too much for me. I thought I couldn't read. And how did I devour 4 of these books in 7 days?
Mm-hmm.
Only because I had to feed the kids, shower, do laundry and stuff. And still, I read it all. And then I was hooked.
Mm-hmm.
And then I said, she didn't even read the books. She was busy in school. So that was when the switch in me flipped on. And I went to my public library because that's where I got the book. And I said, I want more like this. I mean, I didn't even know what romance was. Okay. I didn't know. I was more about children's books, self-help books. And then they said, well, here's the aisle. So they showed me the romance section. And then, but what is this? It says, oh, that's paranormal. I said, okay. But it wasn't the same. I tried some and it wasn't the same. So I went to contemporary. And then I started reading alphabetically, the A's, the B's, and then I jump around. And then I found a book. It was like Goldilocks and the Three Bears,
Mm-hmm.
the finding the bed that's just right.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I was doing because I was reading, and this is like PG. This is, PG. So it's clean romance. And I read some that were like, oh my gosh, steamy. And I'm like, oh, that's too hot, and this is too sweet, So this one is more action. But anyway, I came across this little book and I loved it. And actually, I checked out all of her 4 books that she had at the time. And this is author Kristen Higgins. And in one of her books, I can't remember if it was this one, but she has in the book, it says, Dear Reader, and she says something. And then in the last sentence, it says, if you enjoyed my book, I'd love to hear from you, And I said, okay, because I became such a fan. Okay. We all know when we become super fans. So I became a super fan of Stephanie Meyer. We didn't have, blogs. I mean, if there were blogs, I didn't know about it. So I went on and I looked to see if I could find her to tell her, I love your books, and nothing. I found blog spots, but nothing. I wanted engagement.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't have friends who read romance. I was home alone. Even in the library, I couldn't find anyone. So when I wrote to Kristen, I said, "Oh my gosh, I think you're a gifted writer. You made me laugh, cry, and sigh, and I got my happily ever after." I remember it, and it was in August, I think, or July, August, 2010.
Mm-hmm.
And anyway, I write to her, and then she replies the next day. And I said to my best friend, oh my gosh, the author wrote back. She wrote back. And then my friend says, oh, that's probably her publicist, because, authors, they have publicists. And I said, no, that was her, because that was her voice.
Mm-hmm.
When you read a book, and I read 4, you kind of pick up on their voice, on their writing voice, And I said, no, that was her. And then since she replied the next day, I replied again because I didn't want to lose that contact. And then I said, oh my gosh, I said, how can I, who do you recommend? How can I read more of your books, or who writes like you? Where can I find more? And she said, follow me on Facebook, And then that is when I say at events that I now host, I said, how Lucy went through the wardrobe and discovered Narnia?
Mm-hmm.
That is when Kristen Higgins took my hand, led me through Facebook, and I discovered Romancelandia.
Oh.
And boy, was I overjoyed and surprised.
Mm-hmm.
Such a surprise, because not only was there a community of authors, but there were a community of readers.
Mhm. Mhm.
And you know, something that I would always tell my kids, don't make friends with people online because you don't know who they are, because they can be strangers. Of course, they're young, they're teenagers, you know, or kids. Never make friends with strangers on the internet. But authors are authorities. You can tell
Mhm.
that they, of course, they're a public figure. So in their chat boxes, they would have people comment. And then people who would comment similar to me, I would say, oh, do you want to be friends? You know, like I would message them. And one of my friends is Bridget, and she's in France. And since then, since 2010, we've been friends,
Aw.
formed
Uh,
friendships. I
I'm
bloggers.
I'm going to interrupt you for 1 second to ask our audience if they would like to put in the chat what was their gateway book, the one that, put them on the path to reading romance. And Karen asks in the Q&A, I love this question because I love Kristen Higgins as well. Are Kristen Higgins books a series or standalones? She has one series, right?
She has one series, and I have to share this story because so she started with single titles. I think the first 5 books. I have a shrine for her here. Like I have all her books. You know, she has a shelf on her own right up there. See over there. um, what I so she had the first are single titles, and then she wrote the first series, which is the Blue Heron series. But let me tell you something about the Blue Heron series. Back then, because this I kept engagement with Kristen online, and she had introduced me to many, many authors. But one thing, before she wrote this book, she was asking readers if they wanted, because she was looking for names for secondary characters, and we all put like 2,000, I think. I don't know how many, but it was a lot. I put my name there, of course. And then she messages me one day and she says, how would you feel if if I choose your name for one of my characters in the story? And I said, get out of town. I said, really? And she said, yeah. So if you've read The Best Man,
I did.
I am Lorelei from the Sunshine Bakery. And it's funny because I live in the Sunshine State. I don't know if that had anything to do, but I think it's because I always smile. I'm always happy, especially when I'm in Romancelandia.
Mhm.
And so I got my name and I said, oh my gosh, my name is here. And not only that, I'm in the acknowledgements with other authors. And that is so, as a reader, I never in my life would have thought that I was going to be in a book. So this is just to let readers know when they, follow their authors, there is a chance
Mhm.
that they will be in a book if the author, even pets.
Pets. So I just want to respond to Karen because I've also read all of Kirsten Higgins, is that most of her books are standalone. She does have the Blue Heron series, and some of her books are loosely connected, but they're not necessarily like a series. But any of her books from the beginning to her most recent one, the most next one's coming out actually in a couple weeks, are fantastic. You cannot go wrong with them. My very favorite book of hers is called Catch of the Day, and I read it every year, at least once.
Yes. I
So,
don't know what it is, about books that become your favorite.
mhm,
I think it's because it's the one that you read discovering the author. I think this book holds a special place in my heart because of that.
mm,
Because
yeah,
this was the book that got me to engage and connect with her.
mhm,
You know?
uh, yeah. So, but you've met, I mean, so now so you decided to start your own blog. Or did you? What was going on there?
So I began, like I said, I didn't read. When I followed Kristen, I would check books out of my library and start reading. I love libraries. And but then other authors, as I was reading their books, they would offer me advanced copies,
Mhm,
ARCs. And so I would start reading. And then so I was reviewing. So where do I put all these reviews aside from Amazon,
mhm,
So And because I'm who I am, I decided I went to my library and actually I learned how to set up a blog.
Mm-hmm.
And I did it. But then what name do I give the blog? So, because back then romance was so new to me, I worked in the school system. I know how people can sometimes say, like, oh, you read romance, and then they put their noses up and like, oh, I don't read that. And, so I didn't at the time want to put the word romance in it. And because of the alliteration, Lair, I like because it's a place, and now I have one, and lit for literature.
Mm-hmm.
And so Lorelei's Lit Lair.
I also,
So
I also appreciate the alliteration.
yes, yes. So I started the blog, and then I started meeting people, and then I started with something. Since I was getting and authors were offering me to review the books, I asked them if I could offer giveaways. And then that's when I decided on the blog to post author spotlights and giveaways.
Mm-hmm.
So then I did that for a year. Then I was invited at Read a Romance Month, which was an online platform where they featured 90 authors in the month of August with one token reader. I was following and participating. And then one day, Bobby Dumas, she asked me, "Oh, would you like to be the key?" She basically told me that she wanted to invite me to be the keynote, the reader,
Mm-hmm.
the token reader. And I said, "Oh my gosh!" I said, "Yes." And then what day? So it was day one, um, and I was with none other than Sonali Dave and Lisa Kleypas.
Oh.
Oh, that was like the Hollywood squares of romance. I was like, that's like my name between the two. It was like so much. So I went to my library and I shared my excitement because I can't contain myself, it's romance.
Yeah.
I found my new passion. And I went to the librarian and I said, "Oh, I just got featured for this. And I have the blog and this and that." She says, "Oh, how about if we host something here in August? Because, I don't have anything planned." And I said, "Really?" I said, "Okay." But then I asked, at the Read a Romance Month, I said, because one of the question is, and I know you're going to ask me this, is to recommend two authors, two and three authors. I said, I cannot recommend two or three authors. It's impossible. Like no, it's like the Oscars. You can't miss one. So then that's when I proposed that while she shares, three authors a day for the month of August. I said, how about if I also feature one author on my page, the same? So I would have 30 more that were not on her list, on her roster, to have it. So I gave authors another opportunity, more authors for exposure.
Mm-hmm.
And those offered giveaways at my library. So I got to pick 15 readers, and all they had to do at the library was check out a romance and fill out the form.
Mm-hmm.
So that experience was amazing.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm so fortunate to have a library system who is so supportive of the romance community,
Mm-hmm.
which, by the way, in 2017, I think, or 19, no, I can't remember now. 2000, I think it was 2017. Anyway, the librarian of my branch was named, how do you say, librarian of the year at the how do you say, Romance Writers of America.
Wow.
Danielle King.
Uh-huh.
She was nominated and she won that title.
Wow.
So, and the event happened to happen in Orlando. And that was 7 years later. It was 2017 because it took 7 years for me to finally meet in person Kristen Higgins. And by then we were like best friends, like family, like, it's like we knew each other, but it was like 3D.
Yeah.
Um, but I want to share, that any of us that love Kristen Higgins, we love Kristen Higgins. The moment that she replied to my email and I followed her through Facebook, I realized throughout the years, like a couple of years later, that had I written to the Sarahs, the Marys, the Margarets, the Shirleys, the Janes, any of the authors, if I would have written an email to them, they most likely would have replied and done the same thing. Because I feel that the romance community, the romance authors are like a sisterhood. And that was something that surprised me because I thought as a business, when you have a business, you sell your product, right? And you're going to talk about your product and just about your product. And that's not what happens. That then I followed Chris and I said, oh, who do I read? He says, oh, why don't you try so-and-so? And I said, can I? He said, yeah, okay. And then I loved the book and I said, can I write to her? Like I'm asking her permission. I said, can I write to her? Sure. She'd love that. So I would write to them, and that's how it started. And it was such an experience. And I think I started to read romance just at the time that was perfect, that was right. Because from that, and the time, because we had websites, we had blogs, and then social media and libraries and so on, because I took my experience as a new reader, discovering an author, engaging with the author, with the community, receiving prizes and all that. And I put it on the blog. So author spotlights and giveaways. And when I shared it with the library, we had the table and it was a success. Didn't think any more of it. The following year, the librarian says, oh, this year's there's elections, so we can't do it in August, but how about we do it before Labor Day? And I said, really? He said, yeah, let's call it, something, okay, romance, and I said, we both came up with romance, wine, and chocolate. And I said, okay, so we'll do it after hours. And oh my gosh, even through a storm, I transformed. So I took from my experience, from the author spotlight and giveaway, and I made it live. I made it as an in-person event, like a signature presentation. So there's things that I do on there that is like fun facts, because often you go to signings and if you don't know the author, you're just going to pass by, right? Or you're shy. A lot of readers are introverts. A lot of authors are introverts. So how do you get that people to engage? How do you get readers to go to the table? So what I do is that I kind of showcase them. And that's when I do a spotlight and I do a fun facts. So each author has to provide an interesting fact and the audience has to guess. And then once the readers get to hear, I ask authors the questions, what do you write, what genre, heat level, something about their story that is particular to them. And then I get readers to look at the board with all, 10 fun facts, and I have 9 authors to see which one. So the audience starts guessing. And then we pick winners. And then at the event, at the end, then we offer giveaways. So readers go to their tables, and now they have an idea of who they will enjoy, who they how do you say, who writes what they enjoy, and come and meet them,
So you started off like not reading romance, just reading romance, to going into social media around and a blog and things like that, to actually hosting an in-person event at your local library. And I had heard about wine and chocolate, and I know it's a blast. So if you're ever in Orlando, I guess it was in September now.
Yes, it's going to be in September, but where is it? Hold on, I have to tell you. This last year, and so I started out with a group of local authors. I had 13 local authors attend because it was the first time. Then the second year we had most local authors, and then I had Karen Hawkins and Kristen Harmel as the keynote. So I had 2 as the keynotes. And then the following year, Kristen came and was the keynote. And then our library, we had sold out events. The first one was well attended, but we had a storm. and people didn't know what the event was, because a lot of people thought romance, wine, and chocolate. They thought it was an evening, like a date night,
Mhm.
even though the poster had all these books and authors there, but they thought it was a romantic evening
Mhm.
and with wine and chocolate. But then they discovered, oh, these are authors. So the next one sold out. The
Mhm.
following one sold out. And then after Kristen, then I had Sonali Dave
Mhm.
who with me on the you know, that other day. And then we had a break, the 4 years.
Yep.
And then it became the 100th anniversary of the Orange County Public Library System. 100 years. And in 2018, they won how do you say, what is the medal, the national honor?
American Library Association?
Yes,
Yeah.
they are one of the 10 that year that won an
Wow.
award.
Mhm.
I'm like, of course, that's how fast they're. So I
Wow.
said, do something special for, 100 years. So he says, maybe something historical. And I said, historical. Well, in 2019, I met this lovely lady. So we invited Julia Quinn. And can I tell you, the event sold out in like 6 hours.
Mhm. Yeah, it would.
It would. And it was a
It
lot.
lasted 6 hours.
Yeah. And it was amazing. It was a celebration. People were dressed of the period, you could come however, if you wanted dressed. And it was such a wonderful experience. So
Mhm.
I'm so happy that the librarian, we continued this because with other librarians, and they kept supporting that and
Mhm.
elevating the romance community and giving them kind of like a platform. I'm so happy that they opened their arms, so to speak, to bringing this to them, you know?
Yeah, because as everybody here who's a romance reader knows that we do get really like kind of put down for reading what we read, despite many indications that many, many people read romance. But I want to go back to something you had said earlier. I know we wanted to talk about reviewing because you
Mhm.
had said, where do I put reviews? But you had mentioned before we started a really good comment about how readers pick their books from reviewers. So
Yes.
can you talk about that a little bit?
Yes. So one day I was in the mall because I love giving recommendations. So I was at a kiosk in the mall and I met this lady. And of course, I said, oh, do you read? Yes. And then I'm recommending and I'm giving all these names. And then she says, okay, just tell me which is the best book, the best author, and I'll read that one. So the deer in the headlights there? I was like, what do I say? Like, I can't pick. And then it came to me. The best author and the best book is the one that makes you happy.
Mhm.
And what makes you happy? So I often tell readers, because I always bring authors to my club. Now I have a virtual club and I invite authors and I introduce readers to these authors. And what I tell them is, even if you don't like a book, I think people will enjoy a book depending on many things. It's not necessarily that if it's well written, although of course it should be well written, but it has to do more about the person's experience, what they like, what they don't like, what resonates with them and what doesn't.
Mhm.
I have people who I loved the book and they didn't like it. And then, but how can you not? And again, it's about everyone's own experience, what that resonates with them. If they have triggers, then
Mhm.
they may not like a book.
Mhm.
All these things. So that was my answer to her then. But what I tell readers, because this is a misconception, I think, and it's because there are like professional reviewers, okay? And then when you go on Goodreads, on Amazon, and then you see all these like a paragraph of an elaborate, well-written, summary of what the reader, their review. But the average person, when I started, you can start, just one sentence starts with, I loved, or I liked, or I enjoyed, or whatever adjective you want to use, or verb. Is that a verb? Or, okay, whatever, you know what I mean. Um, English was not my favorite language, my subject, yet I love reading. Anyway, just a sentence, include the name of the title and the author.
Mhm.
I loved Catch of the Day by Kristen Higgins. You know, I loved Marrying Winterbourne by
Oh.
Lisa. I adored Marion Winterbourne by Lisa. Okay, that's one sentence.
I'm sorry. I did enjoy that, but I'm a wallflowers girl.
Okay, see? Well, you know, for example, I'm an only child, okay, of divorced parents. I've traveled, so I don't have like close knit friends like many in the stories have. So maybe those stories appeal more to me, right? But if I read a story and it's about an only daughter of divorced parents, you know, and maybe they weren't treated right, but I can feel, I can empathize with characters that, you know, resonate with me, that they, you know, share same traits or characteristics that I've experienced. Because
Mhm.
it's romance books, I feel personally, should be rated by emotion more than fiction books that, you know, from other genres, because it's more critical, because you have to look at it differently.
Mhm.
So to me, if a book made me, you know, normally if I enjoyed the story, I'll give it now a 4, and it's a good book. But if the story like made me cry or made me like, you know, just want to jump and, you know, hug the book or not want to finish the pages, that one I'll give a 5.
Mhm.
You know, it gives a little bit more.
Yeah. And I think that's a misnomer about romance in general, is people just think it's about sex, which it
Mhm.
can be, but that there's deep storytelling within romances that can really, as you say, resonate with people. And I find the books that I like the best is where so I learned something about the world or about myself through somebody else's eyes. So it's really, really important to pick up that right book. And as a librarian, we get asked for recommendations all the time, but we have to ask the reader, like, what do you like? What was the last book you enjoyed? Why did you like it? Before we can ever make a recommendation. We can't just be like, I like this, you should read it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just
What
based
I
on.
what I started to do when people, you know, I would always, let's say, because Kristen was the first one that I read, or any others that were kind of PG,
Mhm.
let's say, I would recommend that book and they would read it. They would borrow it from the library and they would read it. And then depending on their response of how they liked it, if they didn't like it, then I say, well, okay, if you like this one, then you'll like this one.
Mhm.
If you, and then so what I was going to say when you were saying that about the steam and, you know, about if it's, you know, I say that romance has, you know, like 50 shades of romance,
Mhm.
because you have from the sweet Hallmark type, you know, Amish stories, which are very sweet, and then you have the 60 shades. But
Mhm.
there's in between. There, you know, I say like people love these movies that are rom-coms, like The Proposal. I love Sandra Bullock. So any of her movies that are rom-coms. So if you enjoy her movies, why wouldn't you read a romance? It's almost the same thing, you know? If you love this movie, you're going to love a romance book, you know? So that's what I kind of say. You said, when they say, oh, I don't read romance, I says, yeah, but you watch all these movies. You know, it's the same.
Yeah, it really is. And the books are just always better.
Yes.
So I'm gonna ask you to take a little bit of a break and show us, do the screen share where we talk about the authors that you have hosted or met. This
Yes.
is so
So,
fun.
yes, this is, I'm telling you, I have a whole bunch. So when I started after the pandemic, I wanted to start with, I haven't had Elizabeth Everett yet, but she is coming to us May 16th, I believe. So she will be visiting us and get to engage with readers. The fun thing about our club is that we bring the author, and kind of like the Zoom now, I do an interview at the beginning, but there's an after party. And then readers and the author, we all meet like in gallery mode.
Mhm.
At the events, remember author spotlight and giveaway? So this is the same, but virtual. But I called it now, Let's Talk Romance Books. And now I did put romance in it because this is what I encompass. I left it Lorelei's Lit Lair because I don't know, maybe down the road I'll like children's books when I become a grandma. So I can have different, it could be the umbrella.
Mhm.
So this one, Let's Talk Romance Books, is the romance. So she will be joining us. And we just had Shayna Galen. I'm going to go through these quickly. Rianne Thane. It's just so people can see which are the authors. And we're going to have Terry Osborne, not you again. She will be coming, I think, the 23rd of May. And we just had Amanda Collins, historical with mystery. Tomorrow we're having May 9th, we're having Harper St. George, because I know this is recorded, so maybe you don't see it. But yeah, we're going to have her. Abby Jimenez is going to be our Romance Book of the Month author for the month of May. Love the book. And she will be also with us. And Alexandra Kiley, she will be joining us as well down the road. I guess I put these. One of the author, Lisa K. Adams. If Loved her books. Marina Adair, Romantically Challenged. Kate Bateman. I used to not read historical romance because I'm a visual reader. So I asked an author, I said, how can a historical, because I didn't want to miss out on reading their books. And they said, watch Downton Abbey, because then I could get, about the footmen, all that. And once I saw it, I got into historical. And again, we're going to have Laura Moore joining us in June, and Miranda Lyson. She also was a guest. Vivian Lorrit was a guest. Oh, I have a funny story about Sandra Owens. So I introduced her, and I had just watched a movie with Sandra Bullock. So I said, okay, welcome everyone, and welcome Sandra Bullock. And I started laughing. That was my first blooper. I couldn't contain myself, and I just kept laughing and laughing. Jennifer Probst. Oh,
Oh, you had Catherine Center. I'm
yes.
obsessed with her books right now.
Oh, yes. This one was unique. I loved this book so much. And I want to tell you, Brad Pitt has what this character has, and I didn't know. So people look it up and see what it is. Amalie Howard, Soraya Wilson, Michelle Major. She was one of the ones in the beginning. Sophie Sullivan, Jenny Hale. This is the Christmas one. Sonali Dave, Jane Porter, Natalia Kanya.
I love her.
Yes, she was awesome. Anna Bennett,
Mhm.
lovely. Serena Bell. We are going to have Liz Talley. She'll be joining us in June, I think. And Priscilla Olivares. Patience Griffin. Katie Ruggles. And Bethany Bennett. Joanna Shoup.
Oh, one of my favorites.
Gilded Age. Love her books too. Valerie Bowman. I think I'm going to go a little bit faster. Liana de la Rosa. I feel like in the Oscars. Okay, and I want to thank Katie Metner, and then I'm alone for being on the show. Marie Boswick, Livy Hart. She was kind of new to me. One of the newer ones. Caroline Linden.
One of my faves.
Yes, Christy Caldwell. Oh my gosh. Cindy Madsen. Love her books too. I love all these books. This one was a hoot to have into Heist.
Uh-huh.
I laughed so hard. Oh my gosh. I did a TikTok video of it. Sarah Adler, and now she has The Happy Medium that I'm looking forward to. Cheris Michaels, Anna Bradley, Dylan Newton, Kristen Higgins we've had, Trish Dollar, Jenny McKinley, Darby Bayham. When she started out, I had her at the beginning. Kate Meter, she was traveling. Amy Andrews from Down Under, all the way from Australia. Eva Devon.
Look at those covers.
I know. Virginia Heath,
Oh, wow. Old school. Meg Frampton also.
Meg Frampton, Sheila Roberts, Lori Wilde, Lisa Lynn, Jana McGregor, Lynn Painter,
Hmm.
Mia Sosa. Oh my
Oh,
gosh.
I love her.
Tina Hunting, Nancy Herkness, Sarah Smith. These books made me hungry too. Kim Law, Annie Raines, Lenora Bell, Tracy Brogan, Tiff Marcello. Lorraine Heath is going to be coming, and she's going to be our June Romance Book of the Month author.
Classic.
And that is it.
Wow.
72 authors, I think.
Wow. Well, I'm gonna have to contact you afterwards and be like, how do I get some of these people? Because I do a ton of romance programming as well.
Yeah.
So let's get into some of your recommendations because this is what you do. Other than connecting authors with readers, you make recommendations and review books. So what are you reading and reviewing now?
Okay. Can I share some of my
Yes.
books that I've read? Okay. I don't have it because I have the ebook, but anything by Abby Jimenez
Mhm,
is a
mhm.
must.
Yep.
Again, if you like, she takes like your heart, takes it out, squishes it, and then you put it back in. You know? And then I have this one, You with a View, with Jessica Joyce when she started. Anything by Chloe Leese, I love. I'm
Mhm.
neurodiverse. I have ADHD, and these are about neurodiverse characters. Catherine Garbera, she writes steamier books for Harlequin, but then she came up with this one. It's the Bookbinder's Guide with Afterglow, which is Harlequin, I think. And then, oh, this is a book that was a hoot. This one I loved. Oopsie, Tower.
Your tower of books is falling down your TBR.
Tower of Books. Love this. I can't wait. Of course, oh, anything also by her. I mean,
Oh, yes.
Hazelwood, oh, this one is also about neurodiverse characters, but I want her on my show. Sarah, if you see this, I'd love to have you. Look, Last Call at the Local. I love this book. Again, I connected because they have neurodiverse characters. That resonated with me. But
Mhm.
it's not only for neurodiverse. It's about the empathy, the emotion. Books, when you read books, you also get to learn about other people's emotions. You get to understand people better,
Mhm.
because when you read stories and you think, oh, I never thought of that. If a person is a certain way, why are they that way? And then in the stories, you find out why.
Mhm.
It's either they're defensive, they're shy, or or they have emotional, how do you say, PTSD or whatever.
Baggage.
Um, Imagine emotional hangups.
Mhm.
Why? Because of a situation. So you kind of learn. And that's what I tell people. It's about emotional growth. Uh,
Mhm.
I don't see it just as like frivolous. Oh, I'm just reading a romance for fun. Yes, they can be for fun, but it's also a learning experience. And I think it's because of my background and I want to see always, I want to pick something that will be helpful to others, So
Mhm.
that's kind of my view on it.
Mhm.
The Stranger I Wed, this just came out by Harper, and The Love Remedy, love that one. I finished reading this one, I think last month.
Mhm.
Funny, funny. It was my first book by Amy Lee. I also want her on my show. And oh my gosh, I love this one. I think this was the first book I read in the year. And The 7-Year Slip. I'm mostly a contemporary and historical romance reader, but because I love the movie Sandra Bullock, The Lake House, and
Mhm.
this was a time travel, I loved it so much. I'd give this one 5.
Mhm.
Um, Loved it. And of course, as I mentioned before, Hello Stranger. Very unique storyline.
So
Okay.
I'm gonna get a list of these books from Lorelei later and send them out to everybody who's registered. So don't worry about having
Yes.
you missed anything.
Yes, you won't miss anything. And then I have, oh, where is it? I know I have Kristen's new book, but anything from Kristen. She wrote romance series and then fiction with romance.
Mhm.
Because these are the fiction with romance book, the ones that are trade. Of course, anything this woman writes, Susan Elizabeth Phillips,
Mhm.
favorite. Um, Lynn Painter, Happily Never After. I really enjoyed this one too. I love stories that have like a twist to it, you know?
Mhm.
And then this I'm looking forward to reading as well. It just came out, so I haven't had time, but by Amanda Collins, The Governess's Guide to Passion and Peril. I'm looking forward to reading this one. I got it by Jo Segura. I'd also love to have her. And this one, I'm looking forward to reading. My son got married recently, so I'm behind in my reading. So The Spy and I by Tiana Smith and Happy Medium by Sarah Adler. Oh my gosh, this is another one that grabs your heart, pulls it out, rings it, and then you put it back. I love torture. I love Carly Fortune, um, Jen McKinley, Love at First Book, anything that has to do with stories with book clubs or books, I will love. And here's the one that will be coming out. I'm halfway through the book. Love on the Look on the Bright Side, and Funny Story
Mm.
by Emily Henry.
Mhm.
So these are the ones that I have on my shelf to read. Um, but again, there's so many authors. Um, and where's I have so many books here, and I have so many books there. But yeah, it's and one thing I also wanted to say about reviews. A review can be just, I really enjoyed this book. This book made me laugh out loud.
Mhm.
That's a review.
Mhm.
One sentence. It could be one sentence. So, and the good thing about leaving reviews, you don't have to, but you are doing something good for the author, because it's so hard for authors to get out there, to get reviews, because that's how business works. That's how you sell books. You need reviews.
Mhm.
So do a random act of kindness.
Mhm.
That's how I see it. Doing an
Mhm.
act, and if you don't want to post it somewhere, you have Goodreads, you have Amazon, you have on social media, you can tell your friends, you can email someone, you can text someone, tell your library. Oh, this is another one. I tell readers, if you check out books at the library and the library does not have the book, submit a request
Mhm.
to see if they can add it to the collection.
Right.
And I created a post, and if you want, I can share it on how to suggest books to the library so readers
Mhm.
can do it. They can either call, go online, or walk up to the desk.
Mhm.
And how to write reviews. I also have a link on how to write a quick and easy book review.
Mhm. So I'm really curious about the fact that you have so many authors, for us to check out. Now, I was talking about this a little bit earlier too, is that I get kind of stuck in just reading the same authors over and over. How do you get out of that rut to like discover new authors? Because there's a certain comfort in reading the same thing and knowing that it's going to be good and something that will resonate with you.
How do I pick it? Okay, I'm a mood reader. So often, um, often I will read the blurb.
Hmm.
And if I see, or I will look by trope. If I'm in the mood for enemies to lovers, I will look at that kind of trope and see what books are in that trope.
Hmm.
I would ask other readers, hey, what have you read? Because when you have friends that are readers, they know you, so they'll recommend books. Another thing I do, and that's what happened with the 7-year slip and the last call. I didn't read the blurb. I had no clue what the book was about. I just picked it up and read it.
Hmm.
So it was totally a surprise. And
But
sometimes,
But you get books sent to you because you're a reviewer. For
mhm,
somebody like, and I also get arcs of books. So, but for somebody who's just like a regular reader who just wants to discover something new, like what should they do? Because it's not coming to them. They have to go find it.
okay, so there's two ways you can find it. So I would say go to the library and sample books. That's how I started.
Hmm.
before all of this, I first went to the library and I would look for books. And
Mhm.
that way you get to sample the voice. That's how I found Kristen. I read so many.
Yeah.
And then once you know an author, and then I think many readers do this, once you sample it and then their books come out, then you start buying their books.
Yeah.
And checking out books from the libraries, it does help authors because libraries have to buy books.
Hmm.
And then if a book, I just learned that if a book is checked out a lot, you have a license for a certain amount of copies. And if they're in more demand, then they have to buy another license, I think. And
Those are for digital books, but yeah. But if it's very popular, we'll buy a second copy of a physical book as well. So yeah, we buy like every library buys tons of books. So
yeah.
um
And another way is, on Amazon, they have there's a free Kindles,
mhm,
and you can go through those and and they have like where you can select by category, like by subgenre. Like if you like contemporary, if you like historical, you can narrow it down and then just look at those. And that's a way of sampling.
mhm,
Also, if you know a popular book, you can also read excerpts or samples because they also have that on Amazon or anywhere. They may have, well, I don't know if they have the excerpts in other sites, but I know there you can read like the first chapter
mhm,
or go to the author's page because often authors, if you subscribe to their newsletter, they will often, some will give you a free ebook,
mhm,
you know, or a novella.
mhm.
And so I love that.
Yeah.
Also entering giveaways, you know,
Yeah.
um, something that like when I do in my club, reading isn't required. You don't have to read because the minute you say you have to read a book and then they say I didn't read the book, so I'm not going to go. But my purpose is for connecting romance readers and authors, and it's an opportunity for them to sample, to kind of see, hear the author, hear what others have to say about the book if they didn't read it. And from there, there's a giveaway, so they may win the book.
Mhm.
Or just by reading, he says, you know what? I'm going to read it because I liked everything everybody said. I'm going to add that to my TBR.
You know,
So,
what I would do back in the day when I was still looking for books because now I work in a library. But did follow a bunch of bloggers. I actually used to follow All About Romance. It's a great blog, but they had many reviewers. So there was a couple that read very much what I liked, so I would follow them.
yes.
So, really finding somebody online too that reads like
Yeah.
you or feels like, like likes the kind of books you like, helped me tremendously.
I followed, how do you say, PJ, who has the romance dish.
Hmm.
And I would get recommendations from her, like we share,
Yeah.
He says, oh, did you like this book? Yes. And we're both bloggers.
Yeah.
And we both, share authors. There's no competition.
Mm-mm.
It's all about giving.
Hmm.
There's so much joy, um, not just only in receiving, but in giving. It gives me so much joy. I think Jane Porter, she said that in social media on her page, says, I love giving because I love that feeling, of giving. It
Right.
just brings joy. It makes you feel good.
Right. And you had mentioned authors' websites. There's a couple of I mean, I know Kristen makes recommendations on her website as well as on social media, but so does Sarah McLean. So do so many of them that if you follow particular authors, they often make recommendations right on their websites for other books that they've enjoyed. And I
Yeah.
love that. I think that, as you say, romance authors definitely lift each other up.
Yes.
That's how I discovered Sonali Dave because both Susan Elizabeth Phillips and Kristen Higgins were recommending her.
That's how I followed her. So
Hmm.
that's how I discovered her, and so many others. And I feel like the Oscars that I'm missing somebody, but also someone that I really loved, Helen Huang, the one the Kiss
Quotient.
Experiment.
Kiss
Yes,
Quotient.
the Kiss Quotient. Also Jodie Thomas, Denise Williams, Nisha Sharma, Carol Carson, Sarah McLean. Anna Grace, Samantha Chase, Jackie Lau, Amy Lee, she's kind of newer to me. Loretta Chase. Love Loretta Chase.
You know that
Jenny,
Loretta is coming to our rom-con on May 18th.
I know. I can't, I wish I could, you know.
I know, just hop on a plane and come and join us. Keep going. I
Tell
just
her. I'd love to have her. Jenny Holiday, Jen DeLuca, I mean, and so much more. I mean, Brenda Jackson, Beverly Jenkins. I just want to hug those ladies. Theo Axelrod, oh, Farah Rashan. Oh my God, it's so many. Did I? Yeah.
That is so many, but it's also
You'll see the list, and but yeah.
it's such an eclectic list, though. It's not, as you say, just what you like to read, but what you think readers will like to read. And I love that because you're not just keeping it down to,
Yes.
One lane or anything.
That's another thing. When I review, if a book, I don't write negative reviews, and I'll tell you why. I don't write negative reviews because I don't like how they make me feel. I don't like putting people down. I don't like it. It brings bad juju to me. I don't feel good when like when you're complaining or something bad happens to you or you didn't like something. I don't like that energy. So if I read a book and I didn't like it, I just don't read it. But if it's a book, I will read it with an objectively, with other readers in mind. So I will take who I think will enjoy this book. If a book was too steamy for me, I will say those who enjoy steamy romances and whatever didn't fit with me, or that I think will help others find the book, that's what I will write in the review. So I rarely like I said, I prefer not to give a spotlight to something that didn't resonate with me, but if there is something that maybe was wrong or something, I will message the author directly, and I will be it was like a critique, a positive, an objective critique. So that just my point of view. If there was, like reviewing, we do editing, or, if something doesn't feel right, I tell the author directly. I once read a book and it had so many typos. And I said it was too distracting. I couldn't read because I had to stop. And so I told her that so she could fix it. I didn't tell everybody in the world, but I will tell her for her to fix it. And again, I prefer to showcase those that I enjoy. And now I will tell you, I used to read only sweet to PG. And I would say, how hard am I going to blush with your book? But now I've graduated, and I tell readers that if a book is too steamy or you don't want, just skip the page, because sometimes I will tell you, Kennedy Ryan, okay, she writes hot stuff, but boy, are her books, she is like a genre of her own. Those are powerful books. And I love her. I would have missed out on reading her book just because I don't read steamy books, supposedly, back in the day, or if anybody doesn't. Now I do. I don't pay attention to that now.
You know who else I read recently? With Lucy Score, who I really enjoy, but we have not mentioned the queen of romance, Nora Roberts, or her, alter ego, JD Robb. And I read every single JD Robb book ever created.
I started reading when I went to the library. I started reading Nora Roberts, Sandra Brown. Who are the others?
Amanda Quick. You must
back in the
Amanda Quick.
Amanda Quick. Who's Laura Griffin? Christina Dodd. All these.
There's a new book coming out. That sounds amazing.
Yes. So all of those I started reading because they were there. But what I love about what I do is that I do connect and share, these acclaimed best-selling authors, but I also get to bring what now I call like mid-list authors. I didn't know there was such a thing because you have debut authors who are new. Mid-lists are the ones that are in the middle who I don't know why they call them mid-list, because I think that there's some that are so brilliant that I said this deserves like a star, you know? And they don't have that, but I want to put them in readers' hands.
Mhm.
I want readers to connect with these. And also, when I met Kristen, when she started, she only had 4 books. She would read at home when her kids were asleep. She was just starting out, you know, she wanted to read out after years later. But now look, you know, she's, you know,
Now
a
she's,
best-selling, acclaimed, and I don't know how many languages and stuff, and the authors. And what happened? Formed a friendship,
Mhm.
you know, through the years, through the connections. So that's what I want to create. I want readers to discover a new author, someone that they didn't know, and then follow them. And then you never know what happens. And then I tell readers, you never know, you might be in a book or your pet. Minuet is in one of Kristen's book too. And this was back in the day. So
Wow.
I
So
know this.
that is a perfect place for us to end, kind of where we started, full circle with Kristen. It is about 8 o'clock, and I just wanted to say thank you so much for this. I have a whole, my TBR pile is just going to fall over after this presentation. So thank you so
Oh,
much for sharing all of your insights with
thank you.
us.
We should have a part 2 and a part 3 because I think 1 hour is not enough. But
I
anyway, thank you everyone for coming.
agree.
Thank you so
Yes,
much for hosting.
absolutely. And I will be in touch, and I hope everybody has a wonderful night reading lots and lots of good books, good romance books. Good night, everybody.